This is Visions Under Construction. A chance for our guests to share their visions and tell us what they're working on. If anything, for their continued support, we would like to thank Simwood, straight-talking, forward-thinking telecoms. Simwood.com. Why not make Cloudonics your communication partner? Go to cloudonics.io. You can find everything about the VUC at vuc.me, thanks to Bluehost, and thanks also to zipdx.com, the conference bridge, and to voxphone.com for local rate dial-ins. And for those dial-ins, go to vuc.me/voxphone and you'll find them. And we encourage you to dial in today. Lots of interesting news, lots of terrific people with us today, including me out of focus. How about that? All right, let's train the there we go. Thank you very much. So from right to left this time, because we're apolitical, we have Mr. Jay Carpenter with us. Hello, say hello, Jay.
Hello, VUC community. Randy and James and Andy. Hello.
Okay, and maybe Michael will join us later. Mr. James Bowdy is with us. James?
Good evening from the People's Republic of the Chalk Valley in southwest of England. Good evening.
You guys really should secede from the Kingdom of United. Mr.
Whatever.
Andy Smith.
Yeah, hello everybody. I'm wondering if I'm a subject or not. I'm a sort of remote subject in exile, I think.
Indeed. Well, there is big news today, but before we get that, look at
Mr.
this.
Graves.
Mr. Michael Graves back at home. Michael.
Hello. I do not have ZipDX hooked up. Do you?
I think I have everything. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish there were ladies here, but there aren't. But folks, I think I just scored. How do you say this in British? Hat trick? No. I think I did everything right. I think I did the intro video. ZipDX is on and speaking.
But no IRC quite.
What do you mean no IRC? Of course there's IRC.
Well, I've got IRC.
And Quell is on.
Can I just point out to the world that IRC does actually work? It's James's client that doesn't work.
Probably, yes. Let's just do a very quick thing on IRC because I'd like to see more people getting on. The people who know IRC obviously are on, including Quell, who waves to us, and James SWF and Lauren Gates. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing that right, by the way. TM1000 and whoever else is on. John Irvin, we went laboriously through it with him. The problem was that last week we had, and Michael Graves is with us on IRC. The problem is that last week we had a terrible, IRC in general suffered a huge attack.
Well, Freenode.
No, all of many servers, but Freenode was the one we're on. And so they did a whole bunch of really grave stuff. I'm going to start a wave. Oh, thank you, Lauren. I'm glad to hear it. God, I'm watching IRC now and I'm getting distracted. The point is that they took some measures and one of them was that you have to register. So a very long story short, because we have a lot of other things to talk about this week, despite that it's Dog Days, August 24th, you have to register a nick. Yes, a nick, ladies and gentlemen, a nickname, a handle on IRC if you want to get on the channel. However, PSIM, P-S-I-M, just joined the chat room. We have revoiced everybody because some of you knew how to get the nick on and were not voiced because we turned everything off because I made a major error, put my password in the clear, and the race started to try to change passwords and get everything stopped and all that. Anyway, everything is back to normal except you absolutely... Dan Jenkins is distracting us again. You absolutely have to register. And I think that is a Freenode thing. They are not accepting things that are not registered anymore. And I believe that our channel, pound VUC or hash VUC, is also set now for registered only. And that's a anti-spam measure. So to register on IRC, go to Google, register IRC, and that's enough of that. Okay. And you'll be sufficiently confused. Meanwhile, there's a discussion about call girls. which should be sex workers, gentlemen. But anyway, what's the story on? Has anybody heard from? It's wonderful that IRC is working again because it's totally distracting. Has anybody heard from Mr. Duffett?
Yes, I've heard from him.
And they're late.
He will be joining us, but not for another 10 to 15 minutes.
All right. I hate to conjecture and say a bunch of stuff about what's happening with Digium and Sangoma. So let's not. Let's talk about, as I wanted to do, the week's personal news and what everybody has experienced. I'd be happy to get into that, but I've already talked for quite a while. So let's go to Jay. Jay, what have you been doing the past week that you would care to reveal to the general public?
So I run the largest blockchain meetup in Arizona, and next week we are having a smart cities, public administration, blockchain, and prototyping session, and we have the Chief Information Officer of the City of Phoenix, along with the Assistant Chief Information Officer of the City of Phoenix, Oracle, a company called Local Motors, and a couple top folks in the augmented reality, virtual reality space. And we're going to be talking about how all this stuff is sort of melting together in connectivity, communications, cybersecurity, all that stuff. So that's what I'm up to.
That's
absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, that's very cool, Jay. And I just wanted to, I'm sorry, James, I just want to ask for a definition of smart city. I think I know what it means, but get a little bit more into that.
I think smart city is just sort of a ubiquitous connectivity and intelligence construct where everything starts to sort of tie together. And so you've got, all the cameras in the city sort of working in harmony and unison, and devices. You start to create an opportunity for businesses and institutions within a city to sort of communicate with one another. So I'm not sure there's a clear definition of it, but it's basically like creating a digitized ecosystem that's centric to a particular city or location. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think the general thing has to do with tying together the cameras. Just a quick aside before James goes on with what he was going to say, which is I was in Minneapolis, St. Paul a couple of weeks ago. And what I noticed was that where I live here in France, they have an app that you do for parking. But in that area, in the Twin Cities, at least in Minneapolis, they have a pole that gives you a number behind, and you're nodding, Jay, so maybe the same thing where you are. There's a number of each parking place, and in fact, it isn't an app. There's a terminal, and you type in the number with your payment. So that's interesting. I thought that was interesting because these are different approaches to the same problem, which is pay for parking, right? Do you have that there? Is that why you're nodding?
Yeah. I mean, that's the other part that I didn't mention is payments become an integral part of the smart city concept, where all of a sudden you can pay for parking, you can pay for tolls, you can pay for taxes, you can pay for services in sort of an integrated fashion, and that starts to look very interesting. The other part that I think is really, really interesting is the autonomous vehicles might start to constitute the electric grid. So in other words, the utility companies might start to see their business at least supplemented, if not surpassed, by autonomous vehicles that can both charge and discharge their batteries around the city based upon where the electricity demand is needed within the city. So that's another part of smart cities that's kind of interesting.
That is interesting.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that is interesting. It's funny. James just disappeared. I hope it wasn't out of some peak that I interrupted him.
I think he went to pay his parking meter.
Yeah, he went to pay. James,
no,
what's happening in the Chalk Valley?
I was going to take my microphone mute off and hit the wrong button. Disconnect.
All right, it's all for you now. You have our attention.
Yeah, I've completely forgotten what I was going to say. Something deep and meaningful.
Tell us about the Chalk Valley.
Oh, the Chalk Valley is well, not a smart city, but it's going to be a smart valley in that we're putting a community owned 4G and later 5G mobile system, flooding the entire valley with between 50 and 70 cells. The main revenues for this, to keep the whole thing going, interestingly enough, are likely not to come from traffic. So a small amount of money will come from other mobile network operators roaming onto the valley, but the majority of the funding will come from applications that sit upon the network, which are not the traditional voice and SMS or just raw data, for what that's worth. Jay, I was going to suggest that with all your blockchaining stuff, what you ought to do is do a weekly blockchain spot.
Bulletin?
Yeah, bulletin. And perhaps focus on just the one single blockchain development or exciting piece that's grabbed your fancy in the week. And if we all do one exciting piece and aim to do no more than, I don't know, minute and a half segment on it, then that could be quite fun, couldn't it? What do you think?
Be happy to do that.
Yeah.
That'd be great, James.
Really
very good idea, James, and that would be great, Jay.
By the way, Mr. Duffett just pinged and said he's got the coordinates. He'll be along shortly, which leads me to say I have to be off shortly because my dear darling wife just came bursting in to say that my dear darling son, who has got a birthday today, has managed to get himself stranded in the New Forest.
Well, could you not, if you're going to pick up your son, could you not put Sophie in your place so we can have her as part of the discussion?
No, she's preparing some bits and pieces because it's my son's 90th birthday today.
90th birthday? He's 90? That's 19th. Interesting. Oh, 90.
And we have the puppy as well.
The puppy is how old? 19 days?
No, he's about 10 weeks, but he's going around eating things like my shoes.
That's what puppies do.
What I'm going to do, I'm going to leap in the car. I will join you on ZipDX, so I'll be able to listen.
Okay, excellent.
In between dropping out up and down the Chalk Valley because it's a mobile hotspot. But
indeed,
I will join you shortly.
Okay, see you then.
Okay, à besoin.
Andy, do you have a report of your week?
What's my week been? I've been playing with diameter, and I've fallen in love with microtic, or rather microtic, as I like to call them, routers. Playing with VPNs and so on. It's the only router I've actually managed to get SCTP to work through properly. So there we are. That's been my week. Playing with signaling.
What is a CTP for people like me who are illiterate?
Stream Control Transport Protocol.
Oh,
SCTP.
SCTP. Stream Control Transport Protocol?
Protocol, yes, indeed.
And what is that when it's at the bar having raising his elbow with a beer?
It doesn't quite operate at the same level as TCP. It's a level higher in the stack.
Yeah, as Michael says, that's exactly where John Candy started at SCTP.
Yeah, well, there you go. I also discovered that BT run all their SIP using SCTP for signaling, which is interesting because that is multi-redundancy automatically in the signaling. It's an interesting way of doing it, and indeed what it was intended for in the first place.
Well, all of that is excellent. I was talking to a friend of mine on Google Voice earlier today, and suddenly the call hung up, and I realized that the whole time I had been on LTE, and then finally the Wi-Fi kicked in, and something happened that it didn't like. So anyway, what does that have to do with? Well, because I thought SCTP was something I didn't understand, and I was thinking that it had something to do with that. So let's blame SCTP for the hang-up.
Yeah. Okay.
Sound good?
It'll do. I don't think I understand it yet either. So.
In router news, has anybody rebooted theirs recently? I haven't had to because I don't know. This is a set-top box. It's not a set-top box, but it's the Orange's box. And we don't have much control over their software. I assume that they take care of that themselves.
Let us see. My router's been up for 35 days.
I remember when I had a Linux distro running, and it had been up for like 4 years, and somebody said, well, if it's been up for 4 years, it probably really seriously needs patching. Anyway, Michael, you received a new headset. Are you wearing it? Are you currently deploying it at the moment?
Old headset. New headset. Only a one-ear model.
Sounds great. Sounds great to me.
You know, it's early days yet. First of all, thanks to Sennheiser for sending it along. I'm one of the 3 people on the planet who cares about headsets enough to still maybe write something about it. So that's interesting. It's fine. We'll see.
Is there any delay? It's decked, so there probably is no delay.
No delay. No delay. And in fact, the interesting thing about this is you've heard me muse for a year or more about I'm curious about the future of DECT, if in fact it still has one. Mm-hmm. And what caught my attention about this is that they realized that they were missing 2 things in the marketplace. One is they didn't have a music-grade listening device. And so in call centers, when people are between calls, they like to listen to music, it turns out. And so they needed to improve the listening experience to be music-grade. And the other thing that they did is that they didn't have a tri mode. So I'm wearing this with the headband. It has a behind the head kind of way you can wear it, which is this little thing, and then it has an ear-based way you can wear it, which is this little thing. So this was to compete with Plantronics. They needed a 3-way wearing mode adjustable thing, so it does that too. But it's supposed to be super wideband, which means 12 kilohertz audio path from the microphone and almost music grade listening. I don't know. We'll find out. I'll run tests later.
It sounds at least as good as your previous one, possibly better in terms of dynamic range.
Well, and in fact, the previous one was, 8K was where it topped out, so HD voice only, which is fine for voice and for this. But we'll see. I'll run some tests. It's supposed to have better noise cancellation in the microphones, and things just generally get better. It does have one interesting security function, and that is when you put it on its little stand, the only way to pair it pair the DECT link is to clip it onto the stand, and then it does a secure handshake when it's physically connected to the little charging stand. So from a security perspective, that means nobody, if you have multiples installed in a building, nobody walks up and gloms on your call. Hello, David Duffett.
Hello there. How are you doing?
I'm okay. How are you? The man in your land.
The man of the hour is here, Mr. David Duffett. He's sporting a full beard.
Yeah, is that Alaskan defense beard?
Yeah, and a Digium top look.
Yes, impressive. So everything Digium may well become collector's items now. Let me go get my screwdriver. I love that screwdriver. It's one of my favorite things that I've ever had out of any conference. The one where you remove it and fill it.
The one you're saying.
If you want to know what the collectible items are going to be, the Sangoma phones, along with the Obi High phones.
All right, David, you're the man of the hour. You have to tell us everything that you can reveal. So start at the beginning.
Well, first of all, I just want to acknowledge the reach and the pull of the VUC. Just able to reach out and get whoever they want to talk to at a moment's notice. It's like a kind of worldwide news network, isn't it? You just go and get a hold of people.
The Guardian is crying in their beer right now, David.
Yeah, so, well, you've seen what's happened. Digium and Sangoma are to merge, but via an acquisition by Digium. By Sangoma, as you've seen in probably a press release or something along those lines. I think emails have gone out to all sorts of partners of both companies as well. But I think the plan is very much business as usual. I don't think there's any plans to disappear Asterisk or FreePBX from the open source domain. Those two are strong open source projects, and they'll continue along. And I think it's very positive because it will create actually the largest open source telecoms company in the world. And in fact, one of the largest open source companies in the world, full stop, never mind telecoms.
Okay, and the full stop is for somebody to comment. So please,
this is so much. It's so much going home, isn't it? It's so much going home because it's like it's the two T1 E1 vendors getting back together. It's like a full circle kind of a thing.
Indeed, I think I get the impression that they're. I mean, you've seen the news today, and I've seen the news today, but I get the impression that talks have been going on a long time. Before they're sort of coming together today, and so there's probably been lots of back and forth. But yes, I think it makes sense.
So clearly, Mark's moving to Ottawa, right?
Yeah, I think we'll have to wait and see on that one, Mike.
That's okay. It's good to have a southern office.
Should we be calling this a merger? Is that the right word or not?
Well, it's Sangoma that are acquiring Digium, but they're not acquiring Digium to kind of disappear it or cut it down or anything like that. The full plan is a merger between the two companies. As you know, Sangoma is a publicly traded company, and so there's lots of information out there. They've acquired quite a few companies over the recent years. Schmooze, of course, been one of the milestone ones.
There was an SBC company a year or two back too.
That's right, and VegaStream, the gateway company, and even Dialogic. And in a previous company, I worked for kind of like an English version of Dialogic, and so see somebody like Sangoma acquiring the Dialogic was quite an interesting thing. And I think that was only last year, wasn't it? Or was it this year? Perhaps it's
2 years. 2 years ago. It's certainly board manufacturers. They're in a lot of spaces now, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's right. So I mean, it will be a case of watch this space. But there's not loads and loads of information I can give, other than I think it's a happy outcome, and I genuinely say that. You know, I'm not under pressure to say anything in particular. I think it's a pretty good thing for all concerned because it will give scale and strength, I think, to the combined company. I'm not hearing any questions.
No, crickets. I was typing. I was expecting Michael to go ahead. Go ahead.
One thing I will say is that at Astricon, there will be higher-ups from Digium and higher-ups from Sangoma sat behind a table with a moderated panel with me as the moderator, and it will be entitled ATA, which, of course, to us old people means analog telephone adapter. But in that context, it's going to be Ask Them Anything. You've come across an Ask Me Anything. This is going to be an Ask Them Anything at Astricon for some senior Digiums and some senior Sangoma people.
Well, I think the first question to ask, David, is what treats you're going to be throwing out into the crowd? Are there chocolates? Are there licorices? What is it?
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? I'm not entirely sure yet, and I'm not entirely sure how they'll be branded either.
You're not able to reveal that important information at the moment, I guess.
Well, I usually bring a stash of English chocolate, but of course, with people from Sangoma coming from Australia as well as Canada, there might be some other delicacies. You never know.
As Quell just said, breaking, David will be handing out Canadian candies. So I guess that's the end of that conjecture.
Now, what are Canadian candies? That's an interesting question. Henry bars, maybe. I don't know.
I was thinking more of the Australian ones that Rob Thomas has brought over in the past. I think Tim Tam biscuits, some, and various.
Ice Pops have been suggested on IRC.
Right. I'm sorry, I can't see the IRC at the moment.
Yeah, well, I'm reading it for you. Dan Jenkins is asking if it's confirmed that Rob is coming to Astricon then.
I don't know that. But
somebody said, unfortunately not. TM1000. That may be Rob. I don't know. When people have these handles, sometimes you don't know who they are.
That's right. I know who Quell is, and I know who File is.
I know you know who. Yeah, Quell. File. I haven't seen File in a while.
You know, it's interesting because in the earliest days, nobody on the internet realized I was a dog.
Put the camera on, Michael. We'll see. So anyway, what did we forget here? We need an Astricon preview, I guess.
Yeah, and as I say, that will be an opportunity to ask lots of questions then as well. I'm sure things will come out over the coming weeks and months. But, I think it's business as usual. We're not going to see Digium disappear or Asterisk disappear or Switchfox disappear or PBX disappear. All of those things are going to continue in the open source domain. I'm very pleased to say.
Super important question on IRC. Any Astricon promo/discount codes to hand out today?
Okay, all right. So this, I will give you one because I have one in my head right now. It's my special personal one.
Yeah.
That cuts deeper than most codes, but don't tell anybody I shared it with you. It's DD3, capital D, then a 3, DD3. That should get you 30% off, which is deeper than we normally go. And I'm sure there's a 20% one somewhere, but the first one that's come to my head is the DD3.
How about the DD2 would be the 20%? So
it probably would actually.
And PSIM says thank you. I'm really sorry. I don't know who a lot of these people are. I know Scott, who joined much earlier. I know who he is. He has a name that I would never have guessed, but I know who he is. Quell has been around for quite a while. Dan Jenkins is a real name, so I got that one.
That's right. We know who he is.
Yeah, we know where he lives.
Organizer of ConCon everywhere.
Right.
Yeah,
that's right.
And
anyway, it's Andrew is TM1000. Okay, free.
That kind of explains why he might know where Rob Thomas is likely to be.
Is that Andrew Nagy?
Yes.
Right, I'm with you. Okay. Hello, Andrew.
And James Finstrom, of course.
Right. Okay, great. Good that these folk are on. Yes, Astricon preview. So,
city, date, etc.
Yeah, okay. So let's go with the date first. So we're in Orlando, Florida, October the 9th to the 11th. The great news is that we managed to persuade Leif Madsen and Doug Smith from Red Hat to come back. Their sessions were immensely popular last year. They did things about network function virtualization and seeing Asterisk as a virtual network function. They're going to be doing stuff as well, but not exactly the same as they did last year. There's going to be stuff about Kubernetes and slightly beyond me, but does Ansible Playbook, does that ring any bells with people? I think that's in the mix somewhere. I was getting outside of my experience when I was reading some of the stuff they're going to be doing Astricon this year, but we're excited about that. We've also got, for the first time, somebody from the CERN project. CERN over in Europe. They're going to be talking about how they put 15,000 people on Asterisk-based systems. We've got people talking about machine learning and artificial intelligence. Other containerization, of course, like Docker. Scaling up Asterisk with both OpenSIPs and Kama-Ilio will be well covered because both of those projects will be well represented with at least 2 or 3 talks each. The guys from Homer will be there, Lorenzo, hoping that Alexander Skubidibidibidibnikov will be there as well. Whether he will or not remains to be seen, but I know Lorenzo is going to be there, and the lovely Celeste as well from the Homer project. So we're looking forward to that. I could, if you want me to talk more about sessions, I could pull up some details, but those are...
You actually could do that, but I want to know if the Queen is going to be there.
Are we talking about the lovely Allison Smith?
We are talking about one and the same, yes.
Of course. You couldn't really do an Astricon without the lovely Allison Smith there. And actually, just more publicity on Allison's behalf. In IT Expo next year, which is, I think it's the end of January 2019, not only will she be involved in the Asterisk world part there, but she's actually speaking on the main stage, because as you know, IT Expo is a very big show with small kind of concurrent tracks that run, one of which is Asterisk World, but they have a main stage as well, and Allison will be featuring there.
That is heartwarming news. Allison is one of the nicest people you would ever meet. Everybody knows that. Everybody loves her, and she's the greatest, and she was at ComCon, of course. Mr. Dan Jenkins, who's talking in IRC, distracting me once again from the Asterisk thread here, but yeah. Yes, there's a whole thing going on here. Crazy.
I've just put a massive load of text in the chat. I don't know whether you want to cut and paste that. But
let's see where that is. So it's redirecting me to GitHub.
Oh,
that's not you, is it?
Yeah, that doesn't sound like.
Oh, that's the wrong chat.
What I was wanting.
I've got it. I've got it. I can put it in IRC if you'd like.
I'll tell you what, Michael, before you do that, let me also put the link to it so you can share the link rather than the text, because that might.
Okay.
But that's great. Yeah, share the link.
I'm just going to go ahead and do that now. Okay, there it is. So it should be the asterisk.org wiki link about Sangoma and Digium joining. And you'll notice one of the questions on there specifically is about whether people will still be able to have Allison do their prompts. And of course, the resounding answer is, of course, yes.
Absolutely. Allison is alive and well. She saw her a few months ago.
Yeah, in fact, let me read out the very question. Will I still be able to get voice prompts from Allison? Answer, yes. Allison Smith has been the voice of Asterisk and free PBX users for the better part of 2 decades. You'll still be able to get wonderful prompts from the lovely Allison, and your IVR needs can be met by both Sangoma and Digium, because they both offer purchasing options for those prompts already. And continuing to speak of a lovely Allison, myself and my daughter Holly were very privileged to have a lovely dinner with Allison and her man Pete in Banff, Canada, a couple of weeks ago, or maybe 3 weeks ago now, but whenever it was very nice.
And I invited Allison just in case we hit her at just the moment. I don't know what time it is there. It's something like 10 or 11 a.m. Let me send that out. It's probably incomprehensible, but there is a link in there. And if she clicks on it, we'll have trapped her into say hello. Okay. What are we missing here? Anybody have any questions or comments about what we may not have said yet?
I want to know what's happening with the hardware.
Ah, yeah.
Okay, so the only information I have about that at the moment is that all product lines will continue for now. Obviously, as the companies come together and the different functions in the different teams talk to each other, I'm sure that something will change, but that process is for the next 90 days, where there'll be, well, when I say the next 90 days, as you've probably seen from the press release, the deal actually concludes on the 31st of August, so around about a week from now. Once that is concluded, then the people will come together for that kind of consultation. And I don't know what's going to come out of that, but it's a business as usual for all product lines, at least for the next 90 days.
Well, I've completely lost track of who sells what phones anyway. The only thing I do know is that Sangoma use Oxtasic's DSP chips, which are Canadian.
Right.
I don't know whether Digium do.
Did you say Octasic?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I'm afraid, Andy. I don't have that information.
No, it's far too deep and technical.
Yeah, I mean, one thing to say is there definitely is a lot of phones in the mix, because, as you know, Digium has the D series of and the A series of Asterisk phones, and Sangoma has phones as well. So quite how that will all end up remains to be seen.
Well, the A series will end up standing for antique, and the D series will be sustained.
I think they don't end up standing for analog.
David, I have a
fine.
couple.
It's going to be a strong product line moving forward, though. It's going to be a really strong product line.
Yeah. I have a couple of quick questions, one legitimate, one completely illegitimate. But the first legitimate one is, can you trace for just a second? Because I remember, who was the fellow from Sangoma, like Amukan, which is how many years ago? Ninad, is that his name?
Ninad, yeah.
Ninad, yeah. So I remember him presenting, and I remember very strongly that my first experience with Asterisk, and I said this publicly many times, I was able to put 3 different IRQs on a crappy, Pentium 4 or something, and it actually worked. But the common wisdom was to never try that. Now, Sangoma's hardware, one of the brag points of that hardware was that it actually worked rather than trying to put a whole bunch of cards in. Would you, briefly trace the history of what Sangoma has done with regard to Digium? Because they had a card, so at least 10 years ago, maybe. Just a quick review
well, I can tell you what I know.
of the synergy.
Yeah, I probably don't know everything, but I can tell you what I do know. First thing to say, of course, is that Sangoma has been in the card business before Digium ever existed.
Right.
However, they weren't strictly voice cards. They were frame relay stroke ATM kind of cards. But they've been manufacturing that kind of hardware for a long time. And I believe when Mark Spencer got Asterisk going early on, he actually reached out to, I think it was David Mandelstam at Sangoma, to test out a Sangoma card with Asterisk. So that's one of the things that happened in the history. Both Digium and Sangoma have made cards that go with Asterisk for a long time. Digium first, obviously, and then Sangoma joining the party. And there was a period of history where Digium cards weren't as good as they are now, and where Sangoma were able to jump in and actually get, quite a lot of sales simply because the Digium products weren't doing everything that they needed to do. I don't believe that's the case now, and I think both cards product ranges are very robust. Slightly different aims. For instance, I think Sangoma cards have got multi-purpose FXO, FXS on the analog side, and they can hybrid BRI and analog. And in fact, actually, Digium can do now, so well on our hybrid cards as well. I think Digium cards go higher density in terms of PRI. We can go 8 ports on a single card, and I think the Sangoma ones max out on the on 4, I think. And of course, they use different drivers. The Sangoma use WAN pipe at the moment, whereas Digium use the standard DARDI hardware. So how those things conglomerate or merge, I don't know. But one thing's for sure, I think we all acknowledge that kind of PRI market is heading in a certain direction, and it's not growing.
Okay, subtle. The other question I had, the illegitimate one, was where's the blockchain in all this?
well, yeah, I wish I could tell you that there was going to be a presentation at Astricon about how blockchain is involved in Sangoma and Digium, but I'm afraid I can't. I'm sure there must be blockchain somewhere in there.
But that's probably how they met. All right, David, thank you. I'm not dismissing you when I say thank you, but I don't think you can say a whole lot more.
But there's not ever such a lot. I mean, you can read I've got it printed out here. Look. You can read the FAQ that I've sent the link to. I don't know whether somebody's been able to pop that into IRC.
Yeah, it's there.
They have, but that's as far as I know as well. So, there's not a lot else I can say right now.
So unless anybody else has any questions, I am looking at IRC, by the way. I know it doesn't seem like I'm focusing, but I'm able to do that even at this age. And Quell says the blockchain talk was earlier this week at our DevCon, by the way. So there was something, unless he's joking, there was something.
I did try and, as you know, at Kama Ilio World, there was a great blockchain talk by Michael
Idema, yeah.
That's the one. I knew you'd know how to pronounce it properly, whereas I don't. And I would like to get Michael involved in Astricon to do a similar sort of thing, and circumstances prevented that from happening, sadly. Conflicts of diaries and what have you. But that was I was quite excited about that because I think Michael was working on some proof of concepts within Asterisk on the blockchain side. So anyway, maybe that will surface another time.
Yeah, that's interesting. Michael Idema, who gave that presentation, has been involved in Asterisk. He used to make a little. Oh, you remember the name? What was the name of the box he used to make? He made
Ascosia PBX.
Ascosia PBX, and we met him through the VUC. There was a funny thing where we had feedback and started saying number 9, and it was feeding back, and he was laughing on the train. It was the early days of VUC before we got professional.
He was still in school, and I brought him in back when I was looking for an appliance, and he was one of the earliest embedded asterisks guys.
Super interesting, along with Derek Hartman, right?
Yeah, I remember Derek, and also of course he was involved in the Open BTS project as well, wasn't he?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that came later. Yeah.
Anyway, he's a really interesting guy, and I recommend people check into that. I think that's spelled IEGDES, MA, close enough, maybe. Anyway, Michael's gave a really good presentation. You can see that at the videos for Camellia World. Go ahead, David.
I just realised I didn't talk about our keynotes at Astracon, and one of them, of course, is a VUC sponsor. It's Simwood and Simon Woodhead, who's going to be talking about DEET and why we should prioritise privacy. And then the other one is Deb Bryant, who's the chief open source lady at Red Hat. So we've got Red Hat and Simwood represented in the keynote speeches this year.
Excellent. Yeah, Simon is a very good speaker. He's a very charismatic guy. And I'm moving away from my microphone long enough to say that they also...
But they're usually very well researched with some kind of real life evidence that he's collated from within his own networks and experience at the same time. Randy seems to have disappeared, actually, Michael. Did you do that?
No, I suspect that was... oh, hang on.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there.
We just lost Jay now as well.
Well,
it's a sort of like musical chairs, this one.
Yeah, really.
I think actually what's happening is I think our little MiFi is running low on bandwidth. No?
I don't know what happened, but we still seem to be transmitting, so shortwave.
It is nice to have IRC back. I'll give you that.
It's another element, you know. Here's Jay. Speaking of shortwave, by the way, Google is working on a podcast thing called Shortwave that you can look up and figure out what it is. But it's kind of an interesting thing because the one thing that's missing in podcasting is discovery. We have our little community here, and that's great. Then you've got the top people. And wait a minute. Hold on a second. I managed to hook her in. Here she is.
Oh, lovely Allison.
Hello. Good morning.
Great to see you, Allison. So you are going to be featured at this monumentous occasion, which is Astracon.
Astracon, yes. But, I mean, you probably had this breaking story. I've been purchased.
Yeah, right.
I don't think it's a bad thing. I just got off the phone with Jared Smith, and he said, no, everything's good. You're fine. But I feel like I've been, to use an Evan McGee phrase, aqua-hired. I've been aqua-hired. Yeah. So.
Well, it's great to have you. Thank you for answering my desperate query to get you on.
Thank you for sending me a desperate query. I wasn't desperate at all. Why do you have a dustpan up on your wall, Randy? Let's talk about that.
Because when certain people come on, we need to clean up what they say.
Not me. No potty mouth here. Hi, Andy Smith. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you, Mrs. Smith. I hope
you are looking lovely, by the way.
Good. Thank you very much. And you are, as always. I hope things are good in your particular part of Canada.
They certainly are. Things are smoky, however, because we have massive forest fires in British Columbia. And so the wind is sending everything over to Alberta. So it's extremely, yes, you should wave and, yes, get rid of all the smoke. Yes.
Allison,
yes.
I was telling everybody just ahead of you coming on, but not only are you speaking at Astracon, but you're also main stage at IT Expo.
I am. Yes. It's very excited. I managed to have worn down the guys at IT Expo, and they said, sure, come speak on our main stage. So I'm looking forward to doing that. Should be great.
Is that in February, that?
Or it is late January. Hi, Michael. Yes, late January, early Feb.
In early Feb.
Yeah.
I was at IT Expo last year for the first time in many years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I prefer Miami, but Fort Lauderdale is fine too. So, but enough about me. How's everybody else?
I'm all right, Allison. It's the other.
Yes.
Good.
Now, David, did you tell them that you stopped in and saw us on your world tour?
I did. I said how lovely it was to spend that evening with yourself and Pete and have that lovely meal at the Grizzly House.
Yes, we ate many mysterious animal parts.
It was a lot of fun, wasn't it?
It was. And your daughter is a gem. She is absolutely a lovely young human. So she restored my faith in the youth of today because she's level-headed and a really lovely individual.
Oh, that's nice. Thank you very much. I'm introducing my children one by one to ClueCon. Luke was there 2 years ago and
Yes.
jammed on the guitar with Tony. Holly was there this year. And funny little story. As you know, Brian has a husband called Greg, and Jay Binks, who was there, his wife was there.
Yes.
And those two, of course, are not connected with the world of telecoms. And so while ClueCon was going on, they were out kind of shopping and looking around, and they went out. I don't know whether it was the Willis Tower, but they went up some very tall tower in Chicago, and Holly went with them. And they had one of those photos done, you know, where they click and you can buy the photo. And so I've got this photo of Holly looking like she's the child of Greg and Jay's wife. Stood between the two of them.
That's hilarious. That's great. Oh my gosh.
Allison, what have you been doing since ComCon? Since we saw you and Pete at Wootenhouse, whatever it is.
Wootenhouse, yes. Well, you know, that conference was not wasted time for me, because I was invited to Germany. Next time we're in Germany, which seems to be about once a year, I will speak to the group in Dusseldorf, our friends at, help me out here, what's their name? Sipgate. They are lovely people. So they want me to do actually an IVR workshop, which is great. Also in the UK, I made contact with the lovely and talented Jason Berryman, who works for Dolphin One, and he put me in contact with speech scientists at a company called Google. Perhaps you've heard of them. And yes, so they are, they say they're fully stocked with voices, but I am very, very much looking forward to making some inroads there. At least I'm talking to the right people there. Also, another extremely exciting project, which isn't exactly public yet, but Slack. So we all know Slack and know it and love it. It's a collaboration hub, of course, and they use lots of other platforms, and they use Amazon Alexa, except they don't care for Alexa. They like me. So they actually had me swap in Alexa prompts. So if you're using Slack, instead of Alexa, it's going to be Allison's. This is the first big application that I've actually been the fill-in voice for Amazon Alexa. So pretty happy.
That's absolutely excellent.
One can foresee the time when people will be going, "Hey, Allison."
I know, exactly.
Allison. Yeah, James is asking when we're going to have the prompt. I've been purchased by Allison. I have Allison, I have the audition. I have the honor of auditioning you for Google. So I'd like you to repeat this prompt after me.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
Oh, wait a minute. I think you've said that already, didn't you?
Oh, it's absolutely in the stock prompts, believe me. Yes. Yeah. Yes. So yes, maybe I'll record. I've been purchased. I don't know.
There you go. Well, we just recorded this now. It's recorded somewhere. So there
you go. There you go. So dudes, unfortunately, I can't stay long. I'm expected back in the booth, as they say. But thank you so much for the invite. And Randy, we desperately want to come and visit you in lovely Bordeaux.
Oh, yes, you should.
And drink some lovely Bordeaux. And
you will.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And while you're still on, Allison, I'd just like to say this whole Sangoma and Digium thing is, of course, linking Canada and Asterisk even more.
Yes, absolutely. As Jared said, it's a Canadian invasion, but of course, it would be a very polite invasion. We'd be like, sorry, we're invading.
Yeah, do you mind? Actually, I did that, but I should have told you that this is actually the international symbol for mixing audio. I created it myself. This is the symbol for bridging audio. That's bridging. That's mixing, like a conference. And I'm not telling you what that one is.
And this is a gang sign, you know, which I just can't pull off because I'm a white lady from Canada. I just can't do it.
Allison, thanks for stopping by. It's great to see you and hear you again.
Thank you for having me, guys. I'll see you at AstroCon. And wait till you see this year's Asterisk dress. It's going to be amazing. Yes. No, well, partially. You'll just have to see.
All right. We'll see you then. Thanks, Allison.
Bye, my dudes. I love all of you. Bye.
All right. With that, we need to clear up the main thing, which is anybody missing anything? Do we have questions? I go back to IRC. Yeah, the Hangout. Oh, that's Michael. Yeah. Something weird happened there. I don't know. Apparently, the recording seems to be still continuing. So I'll be very interested to see what it is, except I never watch these. Anybody have any questions or comments? I'm looking at IRC. I'm looking at Wire. I'm looking, where is it? Twitter, I guess. I don't know, whatever. Anybody else have any things? Otherwise, Alan Quayle I invited him to stop by and talk about TAD Hack, or is it Summit, whichever one's coming soon, and blockchain. But Alan didn't answer. He must be traveling or something. Anybody else have anything with relation to all this?
I have only one thing to ask or to say, and it's not with relation to all this, but I would like to send a shout out to Dan York, who is in, if he isn't now, he's about to be in hospital, and only good wishes for Dan as he goes forward.
Interesting. Yes, I would certainly add mine to that. I haven't heard from him for a long time, but whatever it is, best wishes to him. Yes, Dan York.
A previous Astricon keynoter as well, Dan. So all the best.
A large figure in what we talk about often. So yeah, go for it, Dan. Anybody else? Andy, David, Jay, or Michael? Because I have some serious drinking to do after this, and I have to get ready. I have to coat my stomach or something.
Okay, nothing to add for me, but thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate being here.
Thanks for stopping by, David. And it is exciting times ahead. We'll all be following it.
Very much so, and with you being the key influencers you are here on the VUC, I'm sure we could arrange to get myself and Tony Lewis or somebody else from Sangoma at some stage to do a little group chat here.
Let's make that happen as soon as things settle out a little bit. That sounds great. Sounds great to me. Okay. Anybody else? Last call. Otherwise, boom. Okay.
I think we're all about to explode.
Oh my God. Here it comes. I can feel it coming.